On this episode of the Naturist Living Show, Calgary Nude Recreation.
This episode of the Naturist Living Show is brought to you by Bare Oaks Family Naturist Park. At Bare Oaks, we offer traditional naturist values in a modern setting. Free your body, free your mind. www.bareoaks.ca.
Welcome, dear listener, to episode 136 of the Naturist Living Show. My name is Stéphane Deschaines, and I'm your host for this podcast and the owner of Bare Oaks Family Naturist Park. And with this episode, I should also announce that I've just come back from Slovenia, from the International Naturist World Congress, where I was elected president, co-president actually, with the outgoing president, Sieglinde Ivo, for the next 3 years. And I mention that because I try not to make this podcast too temporal, so that if you're listening to this years from now, it'll still be interesting. But I think it's relevant because it may impact the next 3 to 7 years if I stand and if I get reelected in 3 years for another term. It's a 3-year term because there was a with the situation in the pandemic, the 2020 Congress was held just now in 2021, and it is now November 2021. And so what I'm doing and what I'm covering should not be impacted because I try to always have an open mind and neutral point of view. But I think I should at least let you know as a listener that that's my position, and that as a result there might be some bias there that comes into some of the things I say or the topics I cover.
This episode is brought to you by the very generous support of Forrest R., Steve T., Joe M., Michael T., and Matthew M., and to everyone who is continuing to support the show and myself. Your generosity every month is so incredibly motivating and appreciated. If you're not already supporting the show and would like to, just visit patreon.com/naturistlivingshow. All one word. We would truly appreciate the support.
So way back in episode 129 on Naturist Waterpark, you heard about a little bit about Calgary Nude Recreation. It's a group that formed a few years ago, independently of any naturist or nudist clubs that already existed in Alberta. For those folks who are not familiar with Canada, Calgary is on the east side of the Rockies and in the west of Canada. It's in the province of Alberta, a province that has been growing by leaps and bounds over the last few years until the price of oil dropped, because there's a ton of oil in Alberta, more oil than Saudi Arabia, I'm told. And but it's very difficult to extract because it's in oil sands, and so when the price of oil is down, then the economy goes down. So just a little background, not entirely relevant, just giving you a little bit of context of where Calgary is. It's still a wonderful city. It's close to a lot of beautiful mountains and landscapes. It's also a very agriculture area, lots of farms and lots of pastures. A beautiful province and wonderful people. And Calgary Nude Recreation was formed by some young folks who, you'll hear the story. This interview was a much bigger interview than I did. We just used part of that. That was the part that was relevant to the Naturist Waterpark episode. But it was a really great discussion and a really good opportunity to see how groups like this form spontaneously, and how important that is. It's important, especially the non-landed clubs. It's important that they exist because they're open. They are more welcoming to new people, and they more easily expand and grow and try new alternative ways of practicing naturism and trying new things out there. So, without further ado, let's turn to that interview. So, Jeff and Matt from the Calgary Nude Recreation Group, it's lovely to have you on. Do you want to introduce yourselves and tell the listeners a little bit about each one of you?
Sure, go for it, Matt.
Okay. I'm Matt. I'm one of the organizers with Calgary Nude Recreation. I got involved with it sort of shortly after its inception in January of 2018. So I work with Jeff on sort of our social media, on operations, on some of the strategy pieces, on some of the thoughts around advocacy and such. And that's my involvement here.
And Jeff?
Yeah, my name is Jeff, and I started Calgary Nude Recreation. I've lived a lot of places, but every place I've lived already had nude groups set up. And so Calgary was the first place that I lived where there was nothing set up yet. So I kind of always thought there might be a fun, different way to try to run a nude group on a slightly different ideology, and I thought it would be neat to start CNR on that. And it seems to be pretty beneficial for us. We have made a lot of advancements for nude recreation as a whole. Like we just established a clothing optional recreation area in Calgary, which is pretty exciting. So I think we're really accomplishing some really neat things with CNR, with a different ideology.
You definitely are. So what was your background? Like, where were you experiencing nude recreation before you got to Calgary?
Burning Man was my introduction, so a completely different style of social nudity.
And so when you got to Calgary, you looked for nude recreation and you didn't find anything?
Well, yeah, I lived in like Vancouver where there's like 4 different nude groups there. There's a nude swim put on by a different group every weekend. And then I moved to Edmonton and they have 2. And then I moved to Calgary and they had none. So, started something new.
Yeah. So how do you start?
How did I start with CNR?
Yeah.
Well, I had ideas bouncing around in my head. One thing I noticed with traditional nudism is it tends to exclude a lot of people. Whereas, Burning Man, there might be, 100 people in any given place, and there might be, 2 or 5 people naked and the rest clothed, but nobody cares either direction. And I honestly see that as a better way to integrate nudity into our society rather than an expectation that everybody get naked with us. So I had these ideas bouncing around in my head, and for quite a while, about 2 years, and then finally decided to pull the trigger on it. So I had been doing research kind of haphazardly in the background for a while. Like I went down to the local pool to try and find a suitable place, price things out and stuff, like websites and things like that. But ultimately, I found even in Calgary, people were really supportive of the idea. A little taken back at first because it's an unusual request, but once they asked some questions and they got valid answers, then things went pretty smoothly until the media got hold of us.
So we'll get back to that because it's quite a story there, but I'm still curious about how you start. So you're going to rent a pool that costs money.
Well, we had to.
Yeah,
we had to find a pool that was suitable. So there's 4 wave pools in Calgary. One would not rent to us at all, but that was a private pool. So I looked at the other 3 public pools that are run by the city. The first 2, because of the windows, were not practical. And the last one has some windows to cover. It's a bit of a complication, but it's doable. So, I walked in there in person to talk to them, and they seemed keen on the idea. That was pretty easy. I had to get insurance sorted out, build a website, begin promotions. It wasn't that hard. We actually created a guide for how to start a nude group. It covers all the steps we went through.
Oh, well, and where's that guide? On your website?
People could email us for it, actually.
Okay. And your email?
It's not on our website. CalgaryNudeRecreation@gmail.com.
Oh, that's cool. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. Okay, nice. So you find a place and you want to do it, and then what did you do? Stand on the street and ask people to come and get naked?
Well, we made a website for sure. I shared the event in different areas on the internet that I thought would be receptive, like the local Burning Man crowd. But that's ultimately what led to the media finding out about it.
I think you were established on Meetup. That's where I had first heard about you.
That's true, yeah. Meetup.com is interesting because the system will automatically suggest your groups to similar groups, so you could actually get a lot of word of mouth that way, and it's targeted by interest. The problem with meetups is their fees are a bit on the high side, but it consolidates a lot of the things you need to do into one website with very little hassle. So it's a little toss-up between convenience fees and practicality for a lot of people, I think. But so we started off on Meetup, and then necessitated a move to a more accommodating website, which Matt got us set up with.
That's good. So, Matt, how did you get involved then?
So I guess backing up a little bit, my history with naturism and stuff actually also, I guess, effectively started at Burning Man. I had kind of spent all of my 20s hating my body. I was one of the teenagers in school that would wear a shirt in the swimming pool, would never change at the gym, kind of just really had some hang-ups. By effect of my late 20s, it kind of clicked that like, I don't like this about myself. This seems ridiculous that I'm a grown-up and that I can't shower or change at the gym. And so kind of my journey with things actually led me to Burning Man. And every year they have basically a naked bike ride. Depending on who you talk to, they'll bill it as kind of the world's largest naked bike ride. Naked pub crawl, I guess, is the other part of it, because you ride from camp to camp and there's drinks, and it's one of these events where it's full of everyone, and it's full of people that would absolutely not identify with being a nudist but are there, and it's social and it's fun, and it was just kind of one of these amazing moments for me where I took my underwear off and within seconds had made like 3 or 4 friends and hung out with them the whole day, and it was really nice. So I had come back to Calgary after that. Of course, as Jeff mentioned, not really any naked events here, so lamenting the lack of nudity. One of my friends that I'd met at Burning Man actually did the research for me and found on Meetup someone was hosting naked yoga here. And so I had started participating in that. I was on Meetup, and then Meetup, as Jeff sort of alluded to, Meetup will suggest audiences or suggest other groups that are related to your interests. And so that's how I had found out that, hey, someone new in Calgary is organizing a naked swim and this very ambitious naked wave pool event, which had never been done. And so I had attended the naked swim and met Jeff in November of 2017.
And you didn't just attend, then you got really involved, right?
So it was an attended. I obviously I had opinions on. I guess I think at the time my initial sort of thought, I didn't know Jeff or anything. I think my initial thought was a very kind of protective. This is amazing. Calgary needs this. We need to not. This needs to not be screwed up, and because it felt very precarious. It felt like it was something that one wrong move and it could be shut down or would be shut down. And so I think I had reached out to Jeff even before there was any controversy, just to offer some, like, I think he was also kind of trying to make sure that it was real, but he had it under control. He knew rules. He knew about locking doors. He kind of had sign-up sheets and stuff. And so had peripherally gotten involved there. And then after the controversy, he'd put out an official call for, we need volunteers. We want to make a committee. And I had stepped up at that point.
Okay, we keep teasing the controversy, but I'm still going to hold that off, so stay tuned. So, Jeff, the first time you did it, how many people did you get?
It was small. Like I said, I was trying to keep it small. I'd never... I didn't know what kind of people were going to show up. I was new to Calgary. So I think we had about 25 people at a flat water pool. This is not at the wave pool. This is a flat water pool. Okay. Which I was actually pretty stoked with. Something quiet, something that we could get through trouble-free, make sure... there weren't going to be any problems, and then continue to grow. That was the idea. And it lasted for one swim.
And Matt, how many people now?
Peak, I think we had close to 500 members signed up, like actual paying signed up on the website members.
And you did some big events like the wave pool, right? How popular was that?
Those were really fun. That the sort of capacity for that was limited by kind of your default booking. You could have up to 130 people. And so we would routinely sell 130-ish tickets and get 110 to 130 show up at the more popular Months, depending on kind of timing, weather, all that. I think the lowest we ever had was like 75 to 80 showed up, and that would be like either a summer event or a dead of winter. It was a snowstorm and minus 35 with a foot of snow on the ground kind of thing.
Okay, and what kind of demographics?
All over, because we moved to the whole sort of cloud-based membership system. Everyone that attends has to be a paying member, buy a ticket, all that, have their kind of real identity or real information in there as part of our risk management practices. We know kind of ages. Average age has stayed fairly consistent throughout the time we've been running. It's 44, which I think is fairly in line with the average age of people in general, but had members as young as 18, had members as old as 85 or 86, kind of the whole spectrum.
Okay, so let me ask Jeff, because you're the one that brought up the clothing optional thing, and let me play devil's advocate on that, which isn't hard for me because most people will know that I prefer a naturist environment where everybody's kind of in the same level. But actually, I think there is room for clothing optional, and certainly works well on beaches. So it's not entirely true, but I like to be a bit of a troublemaker and question things. So Jeff, the criticism for clothing optional often is it lets people come in and just look and just not participate and makes other people uncomfortable. So what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on this, or we could talk about it for the next 3 weeks.
I know. It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to clarify, though, that there's different scenarios we're talking about here. Like, you run a nudist resort, that's like, you don't go to baseball camp to play soccer.
Right.
So what you're doing at your resort is just fine. You play baseball at baseball camp. CNR was founded on different principles. We're an unlanded club. The goal, especially after the media frenzy that we were involved with, was definitely to start doing more public outreach things and show that this is that our form of recreation is more compatible with the greater society. So the way CNR is set up is to integrate with society rather than be separate in a walled-in, resort. So I think that necessitates certain ideological changes. I see a problem where people enjoy a resort lifestyle and think this is great. We should do this everywhere. We should all go grocery shopping naked. And I think that's a little bit of an unreasonable goal. Like, we can't even agree which sport is the best sport, let alone which team is the best team in that sport. I think it becomes unreasonable when everybody thinks that all of society, not everybody, but when certain people believe that all of society could latch onto the same interest. And to me, that's where the clothing optional thing really comes in, because people are allowed to immerse themselves into the level of commitment that they're comfortable with. So through my experiences with Burning Man, I mean, they don't even call it clothing optional. It's just a Burning Man event, and some people get naked and some people don't.
Right.
And it's not a big deal either way. And something I noticed is that especially if there's enough nudity, people tend to get naked on their own with no pressure or without any rules. Mm-hmm. And something else I've noticed is that a lot of people, they need time to process their thoughts and emotions about it, because there is a lot of baggage backed up with bodies in our, in our culture and body image. So I've had a lot of luck introducing people to social nudity when they were able to immerse themselves at whatever pace they felt comfortable at. So it's just a different style of getting people involved. Whereas in my experience, I've only had one friend ask me to take them to a nudist resort where nudity was mandatory. Everyone else that I enticed to join me on some, social nudity experience was where it was optional. So just my personal experiences, I've had better luck introducing people with the clothing optional policies rather than nude mandatory. It provides a great chance for people to get a closer look for themselves from the safety of their clothes, rather than like purchasing a membership in a group and then buying a swim ticket and then finding out as soon as you get there that you're going to be leaving because you don't feel comfortable with the rules or the people there or whatever. So, it's a little bit tomato. I think it's just a different path to accomplish the same goal using slightly different methods.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you making a difference, because another difference is you call yourself Calgary Nude Recreation, and we specifically are focused on a philosophy of naturism, which is more than just being naked anyway. there's the fun being naked and just not having to wear a bathing suit, and then there's a whole ideology, which is what we're kind of promoting. And I'll say that I never use the word mandatory. It doesn't show up anywhere on our website or in our rules. We just kind of set the expectation that that's the way it is. And I've never had, if we've had to tell somebody, usually that person is also a problem for other reasons, right?
That's a really interesting point, and that's what I tell people too. Like, some people like to say, "Oh, requiring everybody be nude keeps the gawkers out," and it's like, yeah, but someone taking their clothes off doesn't keep them from staring.
No. Have you had any problems though with people that come in and are there for the wrong reason?
No, all the problems we've had have been more of a social skill thing, like people not picking up on certain cues. Like, the problems we've had, everybody agrees there's no harm intended. It's just, we're a diverse group with a lot of people with different life experiences, and everybody has their own, needs to maintain their comfort level, which causes complications in a diverse group.
Yeah, it's been an interesting learning, because I think you go into it and you expect, when you're setting these rules or you're setting things, it's kind of very worst case scenario, very black and white. Someone's going to show up and they're going to have a camera and they're going to try and take pictures. In very black and white scenario, you know exactly what you would do. The lifeguards know exactly what they would do in that scenario. That's never happened to us. The situations that do come up that we do end up dealing with are, we'll get an email from a member after the swim saying, I had a really good time, but there was this guy that just he was chatting and I didn't really want to talk to him, but I felt bad, so I kept talking to him. But it's that, and it's one of those things where we're really trying to reiterate with our members, or make it a safe space for members to know that they can go to an organizer, that an organizer can go to that person and sort of politely ask that they go talk to someone else, or they move to a different part of the pool, and that they're not in trouble. That's not a big dramatic thing, that it's just simply a request that someone doesn't want to be spoken to, and that's fine. That's their right, and it's the right of the other person to go somewhere else and try and chat with someone different.
So let's talk about the real problems you had, which weren't internal, they were external. What happened? Who wants to tell that story?
So I guess since it started under me, I guess I'll start with that, and then Matt could chime in when he has stuff to add. When I started CNR, I started getting questions from a lot of people asking if different groups were allowed. So I started adding words to the website, like gay men were emailing me asking if gay men were allowed. And I was like, well, that's kind of a weird question, because this is not a sexual group. So I started adding things like, open to all sexualities, et cetera, et cetera. All genders, that got added. I had some parents emailing me asking if they could bring their kids. I didn't think about the words. I just added all ages. And then when people on the internet started sharing the event, oh my God, this nudist event, that's all ages. I just didn't quite think about how that would come across to people that weren't used to this type of recreation. And so people really latched on to that wording and, turned it into a big pedophile convention. There's comments online where people were saying things like, I called the police and they don't even care. That means we have to do something. And it's like, oh man, if the police don't care about something, then it's probably not the issue that you think it is. If it sounds crazy, it's probably because whatever you're envisioning in your head is not what the reality is going to be.
So was there like a mass of people? Do you think there were thousands of people that were really upset with you?
I think there was thousands of people on the planet. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was going to say, I think specifically to kind of walk people through it a little bit, CNR had started in the fall. It had held an event successfully. It had announced the wave pool swims in January, February, March. There were about 100 RSVPs. At that time, it was kind of managed through meetup.com, and I believe there was a Facebook event as well. There was something like 100 RSVPs on January the 3rd. On that day, a popular social media account picked it up, posted it on Calgary's Reddit, which I don't know, at the time probably had 60 or 70,000 subscribers, maybe a little bit less than that. Kind of went viral there. Everyone was talking about it. It was new. It was different. It was, haha, people are getting naked. No one really seemed to do anything or seemed to care about it from there. From there, though, the local media had picked it up. It was a cover story. The fact that the event was simply happening, that there was going to be a naked swim at the leisure center, was a front page cover story on Metro on January 5th. The coverage that popped up around that time I found really balanced. It was respectful. There was punny, there was cliche headlines, there was bear jokes, there's stuff like that, but they had the regional manager of recreation for the city provided a really great quote about how the city just loves to be accommodating of everyone. They get bookings from a variety of diverse groups. They don't consider people who want to swim nude to be any different than someone of a religious sect that wants to be able to swim in clothes. They were very, I think, progressive and enlightened about it, which was really nice to see. Over that weekend, though, there was a Change.org petition that popped up. Basically the crux of it was it was sort of, we want it canceled, but if it's not canceled, it can only proceed if it's made 18 plus. And that got to 24,888 supporters of that petition kind of by the end of everything.
Yeah, I had a problem with that Change.org, and many of them actually petitions, which is they present the situation according to one side, and that's the person who writes the petition gets to write everything in it. And there's no opportunity to comment or present an alternate side or even vote against it. Because I would have gone in and said, no, I'm voting that one down. But, there's...
And it was also written by a person that didn't know anything about nude events.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was their perspective on it. It's like if it said, are you for people having a pedophile swim?
I know.
Well, of course not.
I want to throw in another little detail about that too, how the media attention that CNR got. We got a lot of attention then, and we did not have the protocols in place to process all those registrants. So just even if there was no backlash against that event, CNR grew too fast for me to handle in that 1 month period anyways. So there's a bunch of reasons why all of that was not helpful.
No, and you also attracted the attention of a very specific group, right?
Yeah. We have some unique characters in Calgary. There's a bit of religious
fundamentalism.
Yeah. And
extremism.
Extremism is probably a better word.
Yeah,
sure. They're like one of the gentlemen. He marched out in the middle of the Stampede Parade and tried taking it over to turn it into a March for God or something like that. So he got arrested, and then he's the type of person that claims that that's religious discrimination to not let him do that. And then the other guy, he's a several-time mayoral candidate, and he does the same kind of things. Like both of their attitudes are basically, if they're not allowed to push their religion in everybody's faces, then they're being discriminated against, and they're basically unwavering in their position, and then you can't reason with them and can't negotiate with them. Like we weren't trying to put our event in everyone's faces. We were having it in a community center and blacking out the windows, so we wouldn't bother anybody. And then suddenly that wasn't good enough. What about our freedom? How come we don't get freedom and they get all of it?
See, I would actually love to have that kind of a few nuts come and protest Bear Oaks, but I don't have to worry about being shut down because I own the property.
Yeah.
And I don't have a landlord who can suddenly get skittish.
Yeah.
But you had some serious concerns by the city, didn't you?
Well, there was a bomb threat that I didn't know about at the time. There was all kinds of threats of violence against everybody in the community center. Actually, there was talk of thrashing all of the cars in the parking lot, even though when our swim started in those days, the community center is actually pretty busy. Like they've got the hockey rink, they got the climbing wall, and a gym in the back. Like there's a lot of different groups that use that facility.
Mm-hmm. So did the city want to shut you down?
Nobody at the pool did. Everybody, all the staff at the pool said that they believed that the swim should have been allowed to take place, but they're not the ones making those decisions. The city of Calgary was in a bit of a tough spot because there's a lot of stuff going on right then. They have a lot of metrics to balance out, and many of those don't apply to me or are not my concern. So obviously we're not going to see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I would say overall the city was mostly supportive, but in a tough bind, and they were trying to pick the best bad option that they had available to them.
Yeah, I think that it's important to clarify that the city canceled the event due to concerns about safety and security arising from volatile public commentary. The city was very clear that it was canceled for safety reasons, that it had nothing to do with nudity. The mayor himself said that it was specifically that the city did not have enough time to do a sophisticated security response. It had nothing to do with the petitions. It had nothing to do with the nudity. It unfortunately did have to do with the threats of property damage to cars at the swimming pool and bomb threats and the related online activity there.
So how did you react? What changed? What did you do? What have you been doing differently?
Honestly, that was probably the best thing that could have happened. It gave us a lot of social credit, essentially, to basically establish naturism as a lawful form of recreation. Like, I think if that didn't happen and we started doing the things that CNR started doing publicly, then I think we would be seen as, pushing boundaries. But I think because of that happened and our actions are a direct result, I think we get a lot of leeway because with the advocacy we engage in, we engage in a lot of like education. We have conversations with authorities ahead of time. Everything we do, we're trying to do as non-confrontationally as possible and to be as easy on people as we can, because like we know that we're pushing people's comfort zones. So we've actually got a policy change from Alberta Parks to be able to host like nude hikes in the Rocky Mountains. Nice. We just established a clothing optional recreation area in Calgary that was also in a provincial park. We got a concession from Alberta Parks where they're going to treat us like every other park user. They originally told us no because somebody might be offended. That started an interesting conversation, but they ultimately agreed that if anyone interrupts our peaceful enjoyment of the park, then they will take our complaints seriously. So we're using that social license that we got from that media backlash to advance the causes of naturism, and we're getting a lot of concessions for it just by being reasonable. And I want to kind of back up and touch again on the clothing optional thing. I think this is a good situation where that comes in handy, where we pick an ideology that's already compatible with our current culture, rather than trying to transplant a nudist resort culture to the general public, if that makes sense. A lot of people don't see why that's relevant, but I think it makes our direction a lot easier for a lot of people to swallow and then back off and give us our space to do what we're doing.
Are you still all ages?
We say we're 18 plus now, but parents are allowed to bring their own children.
Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing practically changed. There was a shift in the wording and the language, and backing up again to after that January swim got canceled. What the city had kind of come back with was, you're allowed, Jeff, correct me sort of if I'm wrong because I wasn't involved in the city conversations, but you can have this, but we need certain concerns addressed related to safety and insurance and how you're going to demonstrate to the public that you are effectively preventing it from being a pedophile swim, even though the city knew that was ridiculous. But it was kind of, you've got a month to go back, and in that month, that's where kind of an advisory committee, volunteers were established. That's where we put together that we need a cloud-based membership software. That's where we need to sell memberships in advance before people can buy a ticket for a swim. That's where we established that when they check into the swim, their government-issued photo ID is going to be validated. All these kind of just processes and procedures and stuff were documented and laid out and implemented in order to be able to have the next swim a month later.
And do you promote less or differently in any way to try to avoid controversy?
I'll let Matt take this one.
I think we definitely do. The first, we'll say, kind of a year of CNR was really low key. Over time, as kind of March swim didn't have any protesters, quote unquote, storming the lobby. We didn't have anyone at the edge of the parking lot. From kind of March onwards.
Just to clarify, we did have protesters at our February swim.
Yes, those and protesters is the 4 people from the aforementioned church that stormed the lobby, and literally they yelled shame like the Game of Thrones scene. They ran into the lobby and just yelled, "Shame, shame!" Like it was ridiculous. And security removed them, and they had to camp out on the very outer edges of the property. So basically on the public sidewalk, 750 meters or something away from the entrance. And it was minus 25 that day, and they stood out there with their signs, full on poster board signs for 3 or 4 hours, yelling shame at every car that went by.
And mind you, most of those cars driving by at that point were just families there for some other portion of the recreation facility.
Yeah, so it was February was a bizarre sort of culmination of that. But
February of what year for everybody?
That was February of 2018.
Yeah.
But at that time, I think a decision was explicitly made that there was still plenty of media attention. It was determined or established that no, media is not to be on site. We're not granting interviews. We're not welcoming there. They were deemed, I believe they were deemed to be welcome if they were going to participate with everyone else. And no media took us up on that offer because at that time, all the events were actually originally, and that's an interesting segue as well. The first approximately year, all of the events were nude mandatory. And that was, so we've done both. We've done the wave pool swims both as nudity is mandatory and as clothing optional.
And I actually just want to touch on that a little bit since you asked what it took to get a nude group started. Matt made a good point there a moment ago. There was a lot of concessions that were made to have that swim in February because there's a lot of concerns bouncing around the city. So I had one city manager that I interfaced with, and he came to me with concerns. And this is a situation where I think compromise is incredibly valid. We hear on the internet, people arguing, nudists shouldn't have to do this and nudists shouldn't have to do that. And it's like, well, I kind of agree with that a little bit. But if making compromises is what lets us gain ground, then I think they're fair. So one of the compromises was because we allowed children at the event, it was asked if we could check birth certificates to make sure that parents are bringing their own kids. And like everybody agrees, even the guy presenting this to me agreed that this was ridiculous. But what it did was it allowed the city to go back to the people that were trying to keep our event canceled and say, no, your concern is not a problem because of these reasons. And I think that's a really good example of why compromises are really important. Like the city wanted to back us up and we helped them do that with these incredibly minor compromises. It's silly that nude groups are held to that standard and say public pools are not. But that's the reality we live in, and that's what CNR accepted, and we've made great advancements based on these compromises that we continue to make.
It is, and that's what you have to do, but it is silly because, of course, kids in a bathing suit, if you have a pedophile around, is just as enticing as nude. Like it doesn't make any sense for so many reasons, and if they want... There seems to be this perception that somehow pedophiles will drag children to these nude swims.
I know.
But what they want to do is they want to be alone with the kids, not with a bunch of people watching them. I mean, anyway.
Or
even if that's even a possibility, which I don't think it is.
Or the other scenario that was floated out to me where somebody was going to start molesting a kid in a swimming pool surrounded by adults and then say to themselves, well, the kid was naked, so I guess there's nothing we could do. It just becomes so silly when you hear these concerns from people that have never been to a nude event. It's silly.
So there's people out there who I'm sure would love to be able to have this where they live. So what advice would you give them now with all the experience you have about how to get started?
My advice is don't be afraid of people. There's conservative places like Calgary's conservative, Manitoba's conservative, Regina's conservative. People have this attitude that because overall areas are conservative, that's how everyone is. And like I said, everybody at the pool that I spoke to was super supportive of what I was trying to put together with CNR, and even didn't think that the swim should be canceled after the city canceled it. So when you look at the municipal level, the people that actually run cities and stuff, they tend to be community oriented and want to be inclusive of more people. So I would really like to encourage people to not be afraid to go in and talk to people. It's an abnormal subject for sure. They'll think that they heard you wrong. Like I would say nude group, and they would think I was saying new group. Oh, it's a new group, huh? What's it about? No, it's a nude group, NUDE, and then be like, oh. So You got to be ready for those kinds of misunderstandings and just roll with it. This is odd to them. Don't let that get you choked up or be embarrassed. Just take them. Yes, that's right. Nude. We have a problem keeping our clothes on. Just talk about it like that, and then make a little bit of a joke about it, and try not to make people feel uncomfortable for asking questions that you believe are obvious. It's new to them.
And Matt, what advice would you provide?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. My head tends to go more to the operations side of things, operations marketing, things like that. So I think it's likely it can be a lot of work. It can be a lot of steps and processes and things to think through: who's locking doors, who's putting up plastic, who's verifying IDs, how you're going to shred those lists afterwards, whether you shred them at all. Things like that. So it definitely takes some planning, but I think what Jeff is great at is getting it done, of having an idea, of running with that idea, of making the phone calls, of sending the emails, of following up diligently when you don't necessarily hear back in time. And at the end of the day, it's just you interfacing with people and you dealing with people. So just get started with it.
And to repeat, you actually have a guide that you'll share with people if they send an email to.
I was just going to plug that, actually. We have a guide. It's instructions to go from nothing, which is where you're at right now, to running a nude group. And we covered as much as we thought we possibly could that was pertinent to doing so in this step-by-step guide. So you could email us at calgarynuderecreation@gmail.com, and we could get you set up with that. So something else we want to talk about is we want to try and change people's long-held beliefs and attitudes towards nude recreation, especially in public. Like CNR has been hosting outdoor activities in and around Calgary since 2019, and we just established a clothing optional recreation area in Calgary. We got a legal review done on the laws regarding nudity, and we actually came to the conclusion that Section 174 most likely does not need to be challenged at all, that it likely doesn't apply to our form of recreation as long as we're being reasonable. So we wrote an instruction manual based off of our lawyer's interpretation of the law that basically avoids all the pitfalls and the traps that got people in trouble in the past and hits all the high points that were mentioned in judgments. And we've recreated that quite a few times now, 5 or 6 times on Minor Victories. But the last one was we followed our own guide again to establish our clothing optional recreation area in Calgary. We did that. It's a brand new area. Worked with the police. We have the police on board. We have the park authorities agreeing to treat us like every other park user. And we'd like to share that guide with other people, our outdoor events recreation guide with established nude groups. So hopefully recreate these successes across Canada. But we're looking for established groups at this point because it does rely on, the validity, the connection to the community that established group has, that, say, a lone individual just doesn't carry that same weight.
And just for the listeners, because only about 8% are from Canada, Section 174 is a federal law against nudity. Not to be confused with Section 173, which is a federal law against indecent acts. So clearly nudity is not an indecent act in Canada, which is a very important thing. I've always believed also that losing that law could be worse because if you look at the U.S., every jurisdiction makes their own nudity law. Because we have a federal law which is quite weak in many ways, it means nobody else can make laws, and I think that's a good thing.
I agree with that. What do you have to add to that, Matt?
I think it's really like what we would love to see is just little bits of success. There's this vision out there, or this maybe dream out there, that one day 174 gets stricken from the books, and then everyone gets to run around naked and go to Walmart naked and get their mail naked. And that's not realistic. That's never going to happen. And so we're really trying to reframe the current situation and current reality for people who want to get naked, who want to participate in contextually appropriate social nude recreation, that there's a lot less stopping you right now than you maybe think. Every event that we've had in public parks and public places that don't have signs, that don't warn of nudity, people are fine with it. It's a little unusual, but it's cool, it's quirky, it's trendy, it's neat. There's never been anyone that has kind of thrown up their hands and said, heavens to Betsy, I just can't take this, and marched off down to the police station to file a complaint. And frankly, even if they did, we already know what the position of the police is on those engaging in contextually appropriate, quiet naturism.
So that's all for this episode of the Naturist Living Show. Thank you, as always, for listening. Again, my name is Stéphane Deschênes, and I'm your host for this podcast and the owner of Bear Oaks Family Naturist Park. I make the show with a lot of help from Samantha Graham, who you've heard earlier in the show, and who is behind the scenes keeping all this sounding good. So you may not hear her all the time, but she's always there. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/naturistlivingshow. That's one word. Your money, your support, even a few dollars a month, makes a big difference. Not a penny goes to me. It's not about supporting me. I already have income. It's about making it possible for Samantha to spend her time and make this at least a part-time job so that we can keep going and keep publishing more shows and more episodes. As well, you can find links to all of the items we talked about in the show notes, in particular the links to go and find the Calgary Nude Recreation. And all that is on the website at naturistlivingshow.com. And please keep sending your comments, suggestions. I really appreciate getting them. I read all of them. I try to respond when I can. The show's email address is contact@naturistlivingshow.com. I hope you enjoyed the show and that you'll join us again for the next episode of the Naturist Living Show.
This episode of the Naturist Living Show was brought to you by Bear Oaks Family Naturist Park. Traditional naturist values in a modern setting. Traditional values means that naturism is more than just taking your clothes off. It is a life philosophy with physical, psychological, environmental, social, and moral benefits. Bear Oaks Family Naturist Park strives to promote those naturist values in a modern setting that provides the amenities and services that our members and visitors expect. Free your body, free your mind. Learn more at www.bearoaks.ca.
Our outdoor events planning guide, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can talk maybe a little bit about outdoor events. If you want, Stefan, we've got a couple more minutes. We've got kind of the bold statement that we actually think nudity is already legal in Canada. That we don't need to challenge Section 174. That does not need to be stricken from the Criminal Code of Canada in order to engage in contextually appropriate naturism.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Did you want to chat about? Yeah.
Let's start. This is gonna make life difficult for Samantha because she's got to figure out how to squeeze that into the previous interview because I want to end with your advice.
The big bucks.
So. Yeah. Well, she's starting to get a little bit of money. We're up to.